She may have gone to the powder room.
Okay, let the record show that the meeting reconvened at 7:08 with all members of the city council and Mayor Odekirk in attendance, except for Councilwoman Gavin, who was called as absent. We will go back to the agenda.
Mayor,
Yes.
before we start, I'd like to make a statement. Four months have passed since an ethics complaint was waged against me. On Saturday, September 14th, I attended Fiesta and Locale along with Councilman Turk, Councilman Dickinson, and 3 others that were present, and my husband. We were approached by the mayor. We were standing there talking. Mayor came in the presence of all 3 of us, and the others. I don't want to mention those folks' name. He believed that a Joliet police sergeant had been drinking on duty at the function. We looked at each other, we talked about it for a minute amongst ourselves, and then my husband and I proceeded to go home. In early November, City Manager Steve Jones publicly stated that I was under investigation for an ethics violation stemming from some unstated action of mine at the fest, and that he needed to hire a private law firm, Ansel Glink, PC, to investigate the ethics violation because as he had stated he did not think our legal department could handle it, or could our Inspector General. Until today, I have never been told what ethics violation I did. Never presented with any formal complaint against me, and was never provided with whatever evidence was supposedly there considered into going into this investigation. The only fact that I do know through my own attorney is that Mr. Jones chose the law firm to represent the sergeant in the civil rights violation litigation as recently as the summer of June 2019. This is a conflict. In other words, Ansel Glink has represented Sergeant Hefner in the past. So how can they investigate us or this city when we've already paid them to defend Mr. Hefner? That's a conflict to me. Why, of all the thousands of law firms to choose from, did Mr. Jones decide to hire the one firm that represents this sergeant and who has a clear conflict in accepting that assignment? Leaves me wondering why was this done? A taxpayer expense. I noticed on the consent agenda that Ansel Glink is getting a check from us on page 5. I don't know if it's for us or for Mr. Hefner or what it's for, but I hope to find out when we go through the consent agenda. Anyway, Mr. Jones did make sure my name was associated with the ethics violation investigation in the Herald News, online publications, Facebook, no less than 6 times in the newspaper, while I simply stood next to other council members while the mayor told us of his belief. The Herald News also included a photo of me twice under headlines dealing with this probe, with one of the articles stating, "Why Quillman is the subject of an ethics complaint has not been made public." Herald News, November 10th. Nonetheless, Mr. Jones definitely made certain that the whole town knew somehow that I was involved. I was barred from receiving documents and representing my voters in relation to the matter. If you recall, I had to step down from the dais while this council voted to put in Ansel Glink to investigate me. And I found out later that I never had to leave the dais. I'm an elected official and I represent the people of this city. No one can remove me from talking from this dais. So I will never step down again in humiliation, which was, I'm sure, a ploy. So to let me hang out there for 4 reasons against an accusation that was even said to me by Mr. Jones, I do not even know why you were dragged into this. And Councilwoman Ms. Reardon even said to me, you're just a victim in this. So today, my attorney and I personally went to City Hall and demanded that the complaint and the reports, which were finally provided because we had to come down here to get them, because I was not going to wait another 4 months. Ansel Glink was supposed to be here 2 weeks ago to exonerate me. The lady was sick. So when I heard nothing yesterday, because it was supposed to be done today, and nothing happened, that's when I called my attorney again, after I had to hire one, and demand that these issues be given to me so that I will know what is going on. I'm not going to spend 4 months waiting and have this dragged out and my name dragged through the newspaper again. Because if she'd have been here 2 weeks ago, that Posey article would not have been in Sunday's paper. So, having finally reviewed the report, and here they are, 12 pages of an investigation done by our police department. My name is mentioned only 3 times. Ridiculous. So now I know how wrong the entirely baseless investigation. It's a defamation of my character. People that know me have called me like, what is going on at that council? And I said, I don't know. You're going to have to ask them. You're going to have to ask the city manager, because I don't know. I did nothing. But for 4 months, this was allowed to drag on, and it was going to be allowed to drag on until the new year, until I put my foot down today, and I've had enough. I've had enough. The report of the chief of police himself summarized the investigation to Mr. Jones makes absolutely no mention of my name whatsoever. The report of Deputy Chief Mark Reed to the chief, again, makes no mention of my name. None of the reports contain any evidence of an ethics violation on my part. I hope this shines a new light on this investigation. I also hope that this finally puts this horrific investigation to an end. My family and I and my friends have suffered enough with this unsubstantiated allegation. And that's all I have to say, but I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, first, under Mayor is a proclamation honoring the 100th anniversary of the University of St. Francis.
Okay, we have a proclamation here. During 2020, the University of St. Francis will celebrate 100 years of preparing women and men to contribute to the world through service and leadership and being a cornerstone of the Joliet community. The University of St. Francis was established in 1920 by the congregation, the Sisters of St. Francis of Mary Immaculate, for the education of its own members. In 1925, under the title Assisi Junior College, its doors opened to women outside the congregation. In the fall term of 1930, a senior college curriculum was established and a new name, the College of St. Francis, was adopted. In 1971, the College of St. Francis became coeducational. On January 1st, 1998, the institution became the University of St. Francis. Its students doing works of mercy within the city of Joliet continue each year to feed the homeless, aid the sick, clothe the naked, visit the imprisoned, and teach the young. USF alum, as instruments of peace, contribute time, talent, and treasure in service and leadership, building both civic and religious communities of welcome. For 100 years, the City of Joliet and the University of St. Francis have benefited from one another, growing together in both reputation and achievement in a partnership that has enriched the lives of those work in and call the City of Joliet their home. The City of Joliet commends the University of St. Francis for its commitment to its students in the Joliet community and extends best wishes to all the successful centennial celebration. Now, therefore, I, Robert Odekirk, Mayor of the City of Joliet, Illinois, on behalf of the Joliet City Council, do hereby recognize and commend the University of St. Francis, first and only four-year university, on its centennial anniversary for its significant contributions to the City of Joliet, Will County, and beyond. Signed on December 17, 2019, by the Honorable Mayor Robert Odekirk. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Just want to quickly say thank you to the mayor, to the city council, the city of Joliet. Obviously, as Joliet's only four-year university, we've enjoyed a very successful partnership over the years, and we look forward to 100 more years working together with you. Our centennial has kicked off already. We've got a year of activities planned, so we invite you to be a part of that. If you visit stfrancis.edu/centennial, you'll see all the different things that we do have planned. The big event is going to take place in August 27th, where we're going to dedicate our new Centennial Gateway and our new Centennial Quad, and actually have what we're calling the celebration of the century. So we'll share more information with you a little bit closer to that date, but once again, I do want to thank all of you for your support and for issuing this proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Mayor Odekirk appointments. None for this evening. Approval of the agenda.
Pauline, before we start voting, again, I apologize for my voice. I have laryngitis today. Marty, we talked about this yesterday. We have an uneven or an even number tonight, unlike
Yes.
normal. I believe it would be proper if there's a 4-3 vote and it comes to me that I should vote tonight. There is no ties, so I can't act as a tiebreaker, but theoretically that vote will matter on the agenda item.
Yes.
Is that your understanding of the
Yes,
ordinance?
the chair does have a right to vote when that vote can impact the outcome, and it's Robert's Rules, page 50.
So on a 4-3 vote, please call me then. Thank you.
Approval of agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as written with the following changes? Remove council memo number 672-19, an ordinance amending Chapter 8 Buildings, Construction, and Property Maintenance, Article 7, Property Maintenance Code, Division 6, Abandoned Residential Property Registration of the Code of Ordinances in the City of Joliet. I believe this item had been tabled at the Land Use Committee. And remove council memo number 683-19, resolution approving tolling agreement for the Humboldt Road extension among the County of Will, the City of Joliet, and Humboldt Road Extension JV LLC. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It has been motioned and second to approve the agenda as written with the removal of council memo numbers 672-19 and number 683-19. Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is citizens to be heard on agenda items. First, we have Robert Hernandez.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I had hoped not to be back here for quite some time. But last night, for the first time in several weeks, I looked at the pre-council meeting on YouTube. And I want to first of all say that Jim Wolf and Bob Filato are two outstanding citizens in our community, and I respect them immensely. Having said that, last night their comments represented those that have, not those that have not. They are wealthy enough to be able to afford, very wealthy, to be able to afford the tax increases that they supported. Particularly Mr. Wolf, when he said, I want to do my part. Well, of course he can do his part because he's very wealthy and he can afford those tax increases. But the majority of people, and I hear from many people, particularly our senior citizens that are struggling, our middle-class families that are struggling with their children in school, that say that they can't afford more taxation. With the state's increases, the county's proposed increases, now the city of Joliet. And no matter how you try and make it look, the staff, it's still a property tax increase. They're tax increases. And people are upset. Those that I'm talking about are the have-nots. Those are the people that actually vote for you in your district or your city council at large race. They don't come to your fundraisers. They don't come to these events. They come to they might see you at marching in the parade. and say, oh, there goes, I think that's the mayor, I think that might be Councilman Hugger, I think that might be Councilman Turk. Those are the people that really matter, because those are the backbone of our city. Those are the have-nots, our middle class, and those in our lower class that are suffering today. $10 million for a library, come on. I've been there 7 times in the last 2 weeks, and I have not seen a city staff member there, a city council member there, and I've gone at all hours of the day. Last night, there was a guy sprawled out on the table. There were 5 people using the computers. 3 of them were homeless. There were homeless all over the back walls. The security person who works there also works for the Housing Authority in Joliet, as head of security. He was sitting in his office. And they go there to use the Wi-Fi. You're going to allow the library to invest $10 million into a facility that had very few people there. I know they talk about thousands they've had there. I've gone there 7 nights between 5 and 9 o'clock and just walked around. And the most I counted was 26 in one night, and with half of them being our homeless community, which they should have a right to go there. But to spend $10 million to make it look beautiful for that, that's ridiculous. You know, the people can't afford those taxes. Mr. Wolf, who's like I said, I have a lot of respect for him, and Mr. Filato, they can afford it. They have the money to make those business trips, to pay those added taxes, to go to a nice hotel in Chicago and New York, and we should never be compared to that. They can afford it. They've got the money. They're rich. But not the majority of residents in the city of Joliet have that kind of money. And I know the decision is probably already made, because I told them I've been in this game for 35 years, and I've been behind the scenes with a lot of city councilmen, you know, past mayor, current mayor, and I know that you probably all made up your mind. But just let me say this, that those citizens are the silent majority. And I think they're finally waking up, and their voices will be heard in the future. I want to thank you for the time that you give me tonight. I want to say Merry Christmas to all of you, and Merry Christmas to the citizens of our city. And I just want to say one thing. The library has made a drastic change in terms of disruptions that were taking place, and that's because the Joliet police officers who work in the downtown area do an outstanding job in getting that under control, and I want to thank them. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on an agenda item? And then these comments are for all of the items other than the public hearing for 275 West Laraway Road. Seeing none, next is Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a motion to appoint Councilman Hugg to serve as Mayor Pro Tem for the term January 1st, 2020 through March 31st, 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Did I say something funny? I'm sorry. It's been motioned and second to appoint Councilman Hugg as Mayor Pro Tem. Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
and Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilman Hugg.
Are you guys serious? You actually trust me? Come on now. There's got to be one no vote here. Aye.
She's absent.
No, I was going to vote no.
Motion carried. Next are our council committee reports. First is the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee comprised of Councilman Reardon, Councilman Mudrin, and myself met at 5:30 this evening in the executive conference room. The following items were on the agenda and approved. We looked at the resolution authorizing execution of an addendum contingent fee professional services agreement for the Avatar Audit Solutions, which is the company that handles the online access for the filing and collection of our food and beverage taxes, motor fuel taxes, and our hotel motel taxes. We also reviewed the monthly finance reports, personnel summary, travel expense report, invoices paid report, found them all to be in order and recommend their approval.
Next is the Land Use and Legislative Committee.
Yes, the Land Use and Legislative Committee, we met last week, Wednesday, here at 4 p.m. in the council chamber. The committee comprised of myself, Councilman Dickinson, and Councilwoman Quillman. Staff was here, of course, present. We had an agenda with a few items. Our first item was an ad hoc committee advisory bodies. There was some language added to the ordinance pertaining to the members that could be appointed to the different committees appointed by the mayor and approved by the council. And that was proved to by the committee to come to the full council for a vote. Also, we approved the city land lease that I think is up for vote this evening. It is up for vote this evening by the council, a land lease for the southeast quadrant of I-55 and Caden Farm Road. It's mostly farmland, and it's a very, I guess, staff had explained, a difficult piece of property to sell or for purchase because of the, I guess, the water or that it retains a lot of water in the acreage. It's about 17 acres. So the gentleman that will be farming the property was here at the committee meeting and spoke briefly about continuing to farm the land. The next item, which was pulled from today's agenda, with the ordinance amending Chapter 8 building construction and property maintenance, will be brought back to the committee in about 6 months. Staff will be working with various entities of the city and come back to the council with some additional information. So that was moved to table for 6 months. The committee approved the resolution authorizing the purchase of property from the Will County Delinquent Tax Auction. Next, we also had the committee approved the resolution authorizing the submittal of the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, also called CAPER, to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. That's basically the CAPER program is the home funds that we receive, as well as our CDBG funds that we receive from HUD. We had an update of a cannabis ordinance that would be more in line with the after January 1st, where cannabis will be legalized in the state, as far as the paraphernalia, as well as the having of the cannabis on your person. So some of our ordinance had to be updated in order to cover that. Last item that was approved by the committee was amendment to certain parking restrictions. And that was basically, I think Mr. Jones spoke about it last night, was the school bus parking to assist the drivers when they want to go home for breakfast in between runs or lunch, and they would be able to park on the city streets for the time period, what was it, 7 to 8 or 7 to 4, yeah, something like that, during the day for the bus drivers, who they won't be ticketed for parking on city streets.
But there'll be no signs posted.
Right, there won't be no signs posted, but I believe they're going to reach out to the various bus companies to let them know
Right.
that they drivers can't park during those periods of time when they go home for breaks, instead of taking the bus back to the yard. Anything else?
No, that's it.
No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Public Safety Committee?
Public Safety met this evening at 5:30 in the back of council chambers. Present was Councilman Dickinson, Mike Ulitz, Greg Blasky, Dave Ruzek, myself, Michael Davis, and Mark Reed. Did I get it right? We talked about purchasing a new ambulance and from Foster Coach Sales. And it was approved in the budget of $200,000 in the 2019 budget, and then we're going to amend it for $100,000, which we already did in July 16th. But if we do a prepayment, they give us another discount. So what we're going to do here, and it's in the council memo 69619, that the prepayment discount is about $8,000, or it's less than. The present cost is $311,000, and if we pay it in advance now, the whole thing, it's $308,000. So they're going to borrow another $100,000 out of the 2020 budget to make the payment in full so that we'll have a nice new ambulance from Foster Coach Sales. It was a unanimous vote by myself and Councilman Dickinson. Councilman Hug could not make the meeting, and that's all we had to discuss, so we approved it. Thank you.
Public Service Committee?
Public Service met yesterday here at 4 p.m. City Hall in the Executive Conference Room. In attendance was myself and Councilman Morris, as well as Director of Public Works Jim Trisna, Director of Utilities Allison Swisher, and various members of their staff. While it was a long agenda, it was a routine agenda. Not a lot to talk about. There were several, about 5 items in the contracts, a couple of wells that need to be repaired. And we did have, for anybody that pays attention or maybe looks at the agendas online, there was one for a request for authorization for the purchase of an ambulance for the City of Joliet Fire Department. That was simply voted by myself and the councilman to be removed because it belonged on the public safety. It accidentally made it to us, so that's why there was no action taken on it in our public service. Under contracts, there was one item that did not come to the council with any recommendation for lack of a second on a motion to recommend, and that would be under, it's item 699-19, memo 699-19, which is the city paying about $35,000 to remove 2 wells on the prison property that no longer are being used. So at this point, I would ask if it's possible that when we come to contracts, because we usually read all the contracts and vote at once, that one be taken separately. 699-19. Other than that, under change order pay estimates and final payments, again, routine, we vetted everything. At the end of the year, you're balancing out totals on supplies like we did with the meters as one example. Nothing that really needs to be explained unless someone would have a question on an item. Outside of the contract, which is memo 699-19, all the other items on our agenda were vetted by myself and Councilman Morris, and we both voted that all items be sent forward to all of you folks with a recommendation that they be approved, aside from the one that I noted. Did I miss anything, Terry?
No, sir.
All right, that's my presentation. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, then we had the ad hoc city manager search committee. I don't believe that there was an actual meeting.
No, there's no report for that.
Okay. I show no other reports. Consent agenda, approval of the minutes. It is recommended the minutes of the special meeting held on November 25th, the minutes of the pre-council meeting held on December 2nd, and the minutes of the council meeting held on December 3rd, 2019 stand approved as recorded. Invoices paid. It is recommended this report be received and placed on file. Council memo number 653-19, regular payroll for October 11th through October 24th, 2019, $3,542,289.89.
98.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sorry, 98? Okay, sorry. Council memo number 654-18, regular payroll for October 25th, November 7th, 2019, $3,454,335.04. Council memo number 655-19, regular payroll for November 8th through November 21st, 2019, $3,668,882.54. It is recommended said regular payrolls be approved. Council memo number 656-19, position vacancies. It is recommended the city manager be authorized to fill 1 part-time parking deck attendant position due to retirement in the Public Works Department. Fill 1 part-time floor machine operator custodian position due to a resignation in the Public Works Department. Fill 2 entry-level police patrol officer positions due to retirements, as well as any subsequent vacancies which may occur. Is there a motion to approve said consent agenda items?
So moved.
Mayor, I have a question. So let's go back here for a moment to invoices paid under Ansel Glink on the 14th, page 5. I know there's several others in the past. Can, Mr. Gadati, can you tell me what this $1,838 is for? Is that for my debacle and Mayor's debacle here? Or is that for something else? Some other employee we've represented in the past?
Under which one?
The invoice says workers' comp case.
That's a workman's comp case?
Yes.
So can you get me a summary of how much money this has cost the city taxpayers the last couple of months here since, let me see. It was voted on by this council, not the entire council. Let's see, those that voted aye that day to hire legal was Mr. Dickinson, Mrs. Gavin, Mr. Mudrin, Ms. Reardon, and Mr. Turk, and the nays were Councilman Hugg and Terry Morris, and of course that's when I had to step off the dais. So I'd like to know, since they hired Ansel Glink, how much this false accusation cost the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Jim, also, if you could break down by date, because, Steve, you were notified several weeks ago of a conflict, of an absolute conflict with that law firm. And as far as I know, they're still representing the city, I suppose, or you. So you can give me the date of those payments made, Mr. Gadati? Not the
Yes.
payments made, I'm sorry, the billing date that the city's being charged.
For the ethics violations?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
There was a motion, I need a second.
Second.
It's been motioned and second to approve. Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye?
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilman Hugg,
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Motion carried. License and permit applications, Council Memo Number 658-19, issuance of a Class A3 and Class E liquor license at 310 Bridge Street, Bishops Hill Winery. It is recommended Bishops Hill Winery be issued the Class A3 and Class E liquor license.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilman Hugg,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under public hearing, we have Council Memo Number 660-19, ordinances and resolutions associated with 275 West Laraway Road. The petitioner contract purchaser is requesting this item be tabled to the January 7th, 2020 council meeting in order to provide them more time to finalize the agreement.
Are we still gonna do the public hearing, or are we gonna?
Yes.
Yes. So although the ordinances and resolutions are recommended to be tabled, we'll open the public hearing to ensure anyone who came to address these items has an opportunity to do so, and then we will keep the public hearing open and then table the items afterward.
It's a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this matter?
Okay. So is there a motion to leave the public hearing open and table Council Memo Number 660-19, ordinances and resolution associated with 275 West Laraway Road to the January 7th, 2020 council meeting?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to leave the public hearing open and table Council Memo 660-19 to January 7th, 2020 meeting. Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilman Hugg,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Motion carried. Ordinances and resolutions. Under ordinances, we have Council Memo Number 662-19, ordinances approving the 2020 annual budget for the City of Joliet, the Joliet Public Library, and the Foreign Fire Insurance Board. We have an ordinance approving the 2020 annual budget for the City of Joliet without a discretionary subsidy for the Will County Metropolitan Exposition and Auditorium Authority, and without discretionary spending for the Joliet Prison, and without discretionary spending for the Joliet Area Historical Museum. An ordinance approving the 2020 annual budget for the Joliet Public Library, and an ordinance approving the 2020 annual budget for the Foreign Fire Insurance Board. It is recommended that the said ordinances be adopted.
You know, actually, the last sentence we probably should not have read, so this is the ordinance, just to clarify. The first vote is the ordinance approving the 2020 annual budget for the City of Joliet without the discretionary subsidy for the Will County Metropolitan Exposition and Auditorium Authority, and without discretionary spending for the Joliet Prison, and without discretionary spending for the Joliet Area Historical Museum. We'll vote on those separately.
So moved.
Second. Question, Mayor.
Yes.
So this is just to approve the entire budget without those others, and then vote on those after we vote on the budget? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So a vote for the budget goes with all the taxes that are involved, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, without the others. Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor?
Yes.
I'm a little confused. I mean, the 1.2 million that we would be saving by the action of eliminating the discretionary budget can then be converted into a $16 million bond over 20 years. That would pay for all of our capital needs on vehicles as well as other capital needs. We've made $8 million in progress on capital needs as it pertains to vehicles in the last 4 years. I'm confident we'll make $8 million in the next 4 years, and a portion of that bond would make up the other $7 million with the remaining $15 million. Why are we voting on that? It's kind of a weird way we're voting. Why aren't we voting whether or not we're going to include it? Because, you know, I mean, I would support that because that frees up money for capital purchases. But as the councilwoman just pointed out, I don't think there's a tax or a fee in there that Mr. Jones didn't like that's in there. So, I mean, I'm confused. Shouldn't we be voting not for the budget without? Shouldn't we be voting just on the items themselves to be included or not included?
I mean, the budget is a single document in terms of those fees, because they're revenues that have been set aside for specific purposes, along with expenditures that have been set aside for specific purposes. The 1.2 you're referencing?
That would be the total between, roughly, the total between the three discretionary funds that you're referring to.
Right. I mean, in effect, as we've talked about it, the fuel tax is intended for fleet bond issue.
But we wouldn't need that anymore if we're not going to, if I'm understanding this right, unless I napped off for a second, if we don't give the roughly 1.2 million to those three entities, the Alto, the prison, we're voting on it, excluding them, right?
What this does is it sets up the exclusion that you've asked for in the past.
Right. And I don't know if they understand they made a motion to approve that, but then we wouldn't need the motor fuel tax on top of the 19 cents from the state and another 4 or 6 cents.
But that's not the proposed
because we
budget.
could use that 1.2 million, and when you amortize that on a 20-year bond at 3%, and I'm confident we'll get more closer to 2.75% on the bond because of the market right now, that would be $16 million in bond, which over 20 years, that 1.2 million a year would pay for. We don't need the motor fuel increase.
You're suggesting an amendment to the proposed budget. So if that amendment were to gain traction, then in effect what you're saying is true. But that's not the proposed budget.
No, I'm asking you why you went ahead and took my request, my suggestion, and incorporated it, and I explained to you that would eliminate the need for other funds for the capital improvements that you're suggesting, the $16 million bond that this would create over 20 years. Why did you leave the motor fuel tax in?
Because in effect, the combination of the motor fuel tax was going for the vehicles, the other funds related to hotel motel tax were being earmarked for specific cultural assets, as I've called them.
Right. What we had is a presentation within the last couple of months saying that total, we need about a little more than 15 million in new vehicle purchases. if we vote on a budget that eliminates funding for the prison, for the museum, and for the Rialto, that frees up 1.2 million. That then can be turned into a $16 million bond paid by those revenues that we've just eliminated those expenses. We don't need the motor fuel tax.
And if that amendment was made and supported by council, then in effect, what you're suggesting could happen. That's not the proposed budget. So we're kind of going back and forth. I mean, you're proposing something and saying, why didn't I propose it? And I'm indicating that I didn't propose it.
No, Steve, I told you if we defunded those three things, we wouldn't need the fuel tax. That would address our capital needs. You're telling me, okay, I listened to you. I called you the day after you presented from left field this budget to us several weeks ago. And just common sense. I didn't know I needed to direct you like a director and an actor on a stage that, okay, well, I had 4 cents a gallon or 3 cents a gallon in there to get that $15 million for cars over the next 20 years. Councilman Hugg just gave me an option where I can get the 16 million without that. I'm going to put his option in there, but I'm going to keep the 3 cents. Doesn't even make sense.
You know, I think
It's double dipping.
I think a fair question would have been, why wasn't that presented to the council, what Councilman Hugg presented?
My budget proposal was actually made before Councilman Hugg started talking about a plan. He never really gave me a specific plan. And obviously, once we start budget discussions with this group, as you know, I brought everything forward. We posed issues for priorities, for consideration. We had some debate. Obviously, the opportunity would have been appropriate from Councilman Hugg to his fellow council members as to whether an alternative existed. I asked several times during the budget process, you know, this is my proposal. Certainly there isn't one way to do this. If there are some alternatives that council would like to suggest in lieu of, this is the time to do it. And I think both times I made that request, there were really no proposals that were brought forward.
Mayor, I'll clarify and give you a more accurate account of this. On the Tuesday, if you all remember that we received a budget that we were never told about ahead of time, no input from us, am I correct?
Not for me, no.
Okay, I got none either, so I don't know what he's saying that I would have given input prior to his budget proposal. On the Tuesday, he presented this budget that's got every tax, including I think a tax on my kitchen sink. I called him at 8:30 the next morning, Wednesday, and made the suggestion. So I'm not sure what he's thinking of. Now, when we talked subsequently, he said, well, you didn't actually name those three funds. I said the 1.2 million in discretionary funds. We only have 3 funds that we're spending discretionary money on right now that aren't city related directly. And he said, well, I knew what you meant, and I figured it out and what the 1.2 was. So I'm not sure what cat and mouse game he's referring to. I told him on Wednesday morning, why don't you consider that? That's just the tip of the iceberg, because this is chock full of nuts when it comes to taxes and fees.
Well, I suggested the library go out for referendum, but that died here. I mean, we just can't afford $6.5 million.
And I know I made a suggestion. I actually went through numbers and how projections have been off over the years. It doesn't, and I think those were the only 3 suggestions that were made, but it doesn't appear that any of them have been considered at all.
And as I've indicated, if there was consensus, you know, certainly we would have made changes to the budget. I think it's fair to say that there wasn't consensus.
No, I mean, I even asked, well, Miss Megan, I don't know her last name. They have $4 million. You asked if they could do a capital campaign and then maybe come back to us next year and see how much money would be needed, or even, you know, compromise and start with the $4 million you have and then, again, do a capital campaign. And she said up here, no, we want it all, period. So no compromise there. So obviously, they're confident that they have the votes.
And to be clear on this, if I understand this correctly, Steve or Marty, so right now we've got a motion and a second on a budget that's the same budget that was presented without our knowledge ahead of time several weeks ago, except they're just defunding none of the other taxes or fees are taken out of it. You're just defunding the 3 discretionary funds.
Correct. Yeah, nothing has changed since that proposal.
All right, so that actually is going to give us more free money. And I'm not sure, you know, why we do. Now, what I would say is I think the speaker earlier, Mr. Hernandez, I wanted to fill something in. He talked about in this budget and the taxes and how there's 2 groups in Joliet, the haves and the have-nots. And there's some truth to that. Really, there's 3 groups. There is the haves, there's the have-nots, but there's I'm fighting like hell to keep what I have 2 group. And these taxes that you're throwing at them could amount to anywhere from $500 to $1,500, depending on consumption for the families, a year. With an average household income of $52,000, that's 2%. That could be as much as 2 to 2.5% of their take-home pay pre-tax. And it seems like a budget that was put together, frankly, some Saturday morning where you put together what you wanted to spend and said, okay, I'm not going to do any cuts here, and I'm just going to have to create new revenues to pay for my budget. And the other thing that Mr. Hernandez says is that the working families, the working men and women of the city are a silent majority, and that's not true. You find out, as I do, when you put your personal cell phone on the internet and everywhere, that people do want to talk. They call me when they're happy, they call me when they're sad, and they call me when they're mad as hell, and they call me when they're scared. And I would say this budget, regardless of what we do, so, I mean, taking the money away from the Rialto and the prison, and you know that I can support that if we're going to use it wisely, without taking away the taxes that it was meant to prevent, which is, you know, a junior high kid understood the logic behind that. This budget's a mess. It's a complete and utter mess. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll say one, because I really am losing my voice, but I would challenge the council. I outlined at the last meeting the fact that the last 4 years with me as mayor, we have run a surplus. We have not gone into a reserve fund. We put money in over the last 4 years. So certainly, if we ran a year or two where we were facing deficits like are being projected, then this would be appropriate and something we need to consider, but we're not there. And, you know, again, I gave you the facts of the different projected deficits over the year and how wrong they've been. A couple of years ago, our projections were $13 million off. So, yeah, I don't understand what the rush is to approve this. Again, Councilman Turk, you talked about reassessing in the spring, you know, when we see what the actual numbers are, but it just isn't necessary right now. I don't know why anyone on this council would consider this, or at least not at this point, until we actually start showing real deficits, then you consider what needs to be done. But we're not there. The city's been run correctly, and you know, there was a comment in the paper about cleaning up past mistakes. I don't know what mistakes those are. We've added to the surplus fund. And as Councilman Hug said, we bought new squad cars, $8 million in new vehicles over the last 4 years, $60 million in discretionary money for water mains and sewer mains. So we've spent money, and we're still adding to the bank account. This just isn't necessary, in my opinion.
And don't remember, because we are committed to the downtown project, which revolves around the opening of Chicago Street, because a large chunk of the this year's MFT funds was going to that worthy cause, we actually have managed the city well enough and have enough in reserve that, and I think that, Steve, when you and I talked again, you had mentioned something about having a million or two, you know, out of the using $1 million or $2 million out of the reserve. That 2.4 million was completely by choice, because we're like, we have 56 million in there. We can't let the rest of the city not have. We made a choice as a council. We didn't have to take the money out of there. We did that to make up so that we can do the downtown project, Chicago Street opening, and continue at a good clip to allow Public Works to repair and replace streets throughout the city. So that wasn't an emergency withdrawal. That was a choice. That was a calculated choice. And this budget only encourages a group of people governing a city to not roll up their sleeves anymore and make things happen like we've done for the last 4 years. Now, granted, because of the mess that is known as the, whatever you want to call it, the economic development's dead. It's been dead since May. And we have to restart it. We have to hire a new full-time economic development director. And that's a big part of why we were able to do what we did for 4 years. But with all the shenanigans that have been going on for 6 months, that's been ignored, and it's dead. We just had a meeting, it was canceled, you know, because there was nothing to do. So that's kind of where we're at, Mayor.
Mayor, one more thing, just to add to the big picture. The General Assembly passed the infrastructure proposal on June 2nd, and Governor Pritzker is expected to sign it. It also includes a doubled gas tax expected to cost a family with 2 cars $300 or more a year. Under the proposal, Illinois drivers of standard vehicles weighing 8,000 pounds or less will see registration fees jump from $98 to $148. And among them will be a doubling of the state's gas tax to 38 cents from 19 cents per gallon. Now, I don't know what the county's going to do about raising gas tax, but all we keep doing is taxing, taxing, taxing. Enough already. But I can't vote on this budget the way it is. I just cannot. We're taxing our people to no end.
So as it was projected or first sent to us back mid-November, the deficit appears to be $11 million at this time. That number was never that large the last few years. There is either a mistake in our estimates coming into this year. We either didn't get the revenue we had hoped for, or our expenses were much higher than we had hoped for. To me, it appears that that was an issue that we need to address, and I feel this budget addresses those issues. And for that reason, I'm for the budget.
Mayor, question. I was listening to you when you talked. I'm in the dark. What mistakes? What did you refer to that we made mistakes? We need to correct them if we did.
We are not living up to our budget, so I don't know what happened. Either we, the council, voted on a budget that was unattainable, or we lost revenues, or we increased expenses. Because if the information coming from finance is 11 million short, there was a mistake made.
Okay, so I didn't know what the background of that statement was. Mayor, you had the numbers. I don't have them off the top of my head. Maybe you do or don't. I would disagree with the Councilman Muddern on one thing. Yeah, we do have some pretty untrustworthy projections. We have a history of that. Wasn't there one year there was almost a $14 million swing?
Yeah, it was 2015. We were projected, I think, $8.6 million deficit, similar to the $11 million, and we ended up with a $4 million windfall. So that was the biggest swing, but, and I want to make it clear, that I'm not criticizing the finance department. I think they're very conservative in their projections, and they're conservative to be safe with taxpayers' dollars. I think it's correct. But I don't think the 11 million is a real number. Steve, I don't think you think the 11 million is a real number. I think last meeting you talked about 4 million. So.
No, you mixed up something. You were talking
Okay.
about future. But let me give you some numbers. I mean, we talk about projections. And granted, what's happened since 2015? In 2016, we ran a $1.9 million deficit. That's real numbers, that's not projections. 2017, we had a $1.2 million surplus. 2018, we had a $2.5 million deficit. So we've not been running surpluses.
Well, Steve?
Our estimate for 19, I think, will be somewhere between 8 and 11. 6 million of it was planned spending, as Councilman Hug indicated. There was more than just roads. There was equipment, there were other things. So about 6 million, that'll be a real deficit. But in effect, it's something that the council chose to use our reserves on. So that's not something where expenditures just overran estimates or there was some bad projections.
In the year before the number you cited, I think we had a $6 million surplus.
No, in 2015, the year that the big swing happened, it was 4 million.
Okay.
And then the year before that was 3.5.
Right.
So my point is the trends.
Well, you're looking at a 3-year trend. Look at a 5-year trend.
Yeah, the 5-year trend, just the numbers you just gave, Mr. Jones.
The 5-year trend includes our projection for 19 and it includes
Right,
our
but the 5-year
projection
trend
for
puts us in the
20.
black. Certainly from year to year, things will be up and down, but over 5 years, we added to the surplus. If we spend another 5 years of not having chosen or discretionary withdrawals from our reserve, that's when you have a pattern that's developed. I agree with what you're saying, Mayor.
If we were withdrawn to pay the bills, I think you'd be correct, but we're not. And even the deficit we ran last year included, I don't know what the number is, but we came back and said we're gonna spend additional funds on road improvements and other things because the city had been running surpluses. So, those deficits are pretty thin when you look at the margins for what, what the size of the budget is, but it includes discretionary spending. I won't belabor it.
And I think what we're doing is we're both picking out numbers that kind of support the premise. As I indicated during our budget review process, I says one of the things that this council and this management team has been lacking in is really planning that goes beyond 12 months. I indicated that I had asked our finance department to prepare sort of a 5-year projection and routinely give that to City Council mid-year so that you could see how the trend lines are working. So it's not just looking at the last 12 months and making some assumptions going forward. We believe the trend lines are more challenging than has happened in the past because of some decreasing revenues, because of continued increases in expenses on this, 78% of our budget is staff. There's not much we could do with those particular expenses. So we're being conservative. There's no doubt here. But part of what's driving the budget increases and the fee and tax increases, we went through that. And I'll go through it again. So we're talking the difference between 2019 approved budget and 2020 recommended was about 8.3 million. Of that, 2.7 million was pensions, 1.8 was the vehicles, and then, the remaining 40-some% were some of the operating expenses, some internal projects, some IT projects, some police department enhancements, et cetera. So the point is, virtually more than half of that increase is taken up with pensions and vehicles, which are two big ticket items, which in one case, we have no choice. The other case, we've been kicking the can. Now, to get to Councilman Hugg's point, sure, you could allocate whatever money you want to achieve priorities. In effect, the budget I presented was, what I believe balances the needs of the community, throws some new fees in there, doesn't affect the property taxes, and allows us to move forward. It also alleviates what we feel will be a deficit if we don't implement those increases. I also talked about the fact that if the council doesn't want to do those increases, there are a number of things we could do. And they were cuts, and it went everywhere from not replacing positions as they open up due to retirement resignation to kicking some of that capital down the road again to doing, a little bit of retrenching on the capital projects that are internal. So those are options you have. The question is, do you want to do those things or do you want to impose some fee increases? You can't have it both. I mean, revenues, expenses. I wouldn't recommend you incur another deficit, but technically the council can do that.
Any other comments?
Okay, I just want to make sure for the record that there was a motion and a second. Okay. And it's then been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Turk?
Anytime you're talking about increases, I know this budget does not call for an increase in property taxes, but there are user fees in there. It's controversial. It's not an easy thing for anybody to vote on to do, and it certainly isn't popular. But, I think that the budget we have here and looked at the revenue projections and expense projections, there are definitely some things needed. And when we have 83% of our budget is personnel services, and I think that's typical in any municipality or governmental agency you're at, whether it be park district or school district. I think that, we have to maintain a certain level of service, and we went through service cuts before, and I don't think we can afford to cut our services anymore, and by not replacing employees and things of that nature. So I'm going to vote aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilman Hugg?
No.
Councilman Morris?
No.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
I've handled many tough votes in the past, but this budget does not make sense to me. If it made sense to me, I could justify it, but I cannot justify this budget as it stands with all these taxes. So I have to vote no.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Mayor Odeker?
No.
So the motion fails.
Mayor?
Yes.
So if we could then go through the other two ordinances under section A1A, and then B, and then C, and then I'll again address the council.
Okay.
Okay, so next we have the ordinance approving the 2020 annual budget for the Joliet Public Library and an ordinance approving the 2020 annual budget for the Foreign Fire Insurance Board. It's recommended said ordinances be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
And Mayor, for this, just so it's clear, this is the operating budget for the museum.
The library,
Oh, excuse me, library.
not the bond, the operating budget.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so it's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye?
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Motion carried. So next is the ordinance to include in the 2020 annual budget for the City of Joliet a discretionary subsidiary for the Will County Metropolitan Exposition and Auditorium Authority and for the Joliet Prison. It is recommended said ordinances be adopted.
So, second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Hug,
No?
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
I have to abstain because I'm a board member of the museum, and the museum is running the prison, so I abstain my vote.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Then we have the ordinance to include in the 2020 annual budget for the City of Joliet a discretionary subsidy for the Joliet Area Historical Museum. It is recommended this said ordinance be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and second to approve. Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Again, I'll have to abstain due to a conflict.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
No?
Motion carried.
Mayor?
Yes.
Am I following this scorecard correctly? So we have no budget that we've approved, because the only one that we voted on so far ended in a tie, but we're approving subsidies to a budget that doesn't exist.
Right, with the idea that there's gonna be a follow-up, we're gonna have to have a budget by the end of the year, one way or another. So, yeah, you found it right.
All right.
Mayor?
Yes.
So as for the next two items, the council can't pass an ordinance to levy taxes for non-budgeted items, so you're first going to need to pass what I'm trying to do is summarize the best way I can a very complicated statute. So the council is first going to need to pass a completed budget, then the council can pass the levy and assessment of taxes ordinances. And just as a reminder, the certified copy of the levy ordinance must be filed with the county clerks in both Will and Kendall before the last Tuesday in December or by the 31st.
So we should table those, the next two?
Yes, but hold on a second. In order to meet the December 31 deadline, you need to set a special meeting for the budget. So what I'm going to recommend is first you set the meeting, and then you make a motion to table those two to that date.
We can't set a meeting because the councilwoman's not here,
Pardon?
and that's why we have to have a special
She's the only one that's
meeting.
not here tonight.
I'm sorry. What was the question? I'm sorry.
I said, how can we set a meeting when the councilwoman isn't here, and then to get another meeting set, which I can't attend anyway, which I told you last night, I will be on vacation. But I'm saying, how can you set a meeting and you don't know if she can make it? So how does that work?
Well, you need to set a meeting.
So you're looking for a motion to set the
You'll have
meeting?
to call her and find out.
You need three.
It has to be
To-
voted on today.
Well, it's not really a vote. You just need the concurrence of 3 members. This is per our own ordinances to set a special meeting. So.
Set a special meeting.
What do you suggest, Steve?
I had proposed the 26th, 27th, or 30th. If those here are available on the 26th, which is the day after Christmas, that's as good a date as any.
I think we should do that because I have serious reservations that Councilman Gavin is gonna pass this budget. Quite frankly, I don't think she will. I haven't talked to her, it's just my gut feeling. She's never gonna approve all these tax increases. So I think as soon as possible, because I think it's possible you and Mr. McGinty are gonna have to make changes.
So
That's fine with me.
time, 5:30, I mean, it's our standard pre-council.
26th, I can't make it.
26 at 5:30.
Question is, are we going to be having a special meeting only because Councilwoman Gamma's not here, and we're gonna retake the same vote on the same budget? Or are you gonna completely rework this budget and bring something that's less of a mess? Is it gonna be the same budget?
I'm sorry?
Is it gonna be the same budget we're voting on?
I have some ideas, but in effect, the taxes and the fees would still be in it.
I can't make it the 26th, plus my vote would be no anyway, so I don't think that's important.
So you need 5 votes to pass the budget?
Correct.
And that's the ordinance or the statute?
That's state statute, you need 5, the concurrence of 5.
So you're a no vote, but you're not.
I won't be able to. You know, Mayor,
I'm a
what
no
I'm
vote,
presuming.
but
what
I
I'm
told
presu-
you the other day, I plan my vacations around these meetings. And this is the last meeting of the year, and with all that's been going on, I need to take a break. I'm on vacation. No more meetings, and I voted no. I stated that today. I'm prepared to vote today like I'm supposed to, which I have done, and I made myself very, very clear. So there are gonna be no changes. My vote stands, no.
Mayor, I would come here on Christmas Day if it was going to be a reworked budget that made sense. But essentially, and thank you for your directness, Steve, there'll be really no substantive changes. So apparently, it's just a dog and pony to get the 5th vote that wasn't here tonight. People obviously know there's going to be 5 votes. Those 5 can take their time out of the holidays.
My wife's gonna be very angry at you, Steve.
So is there a consensus that we're 5:30 on the 26th?
If that's the consensus of 3 people.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Consensus is 3 people?
In terms of setting a special meeting date, that's per our code.
Well, I think
So
the
what's
mayor,
the consensus generally? Because when I asked for the referendum, you said there was no consensus. So you said that for a meeting, it's 3. So what's a consensus for?
Well, consensus is 5, basically
5 for all
for
of-
purposes of approving an amendment to the budget or actually approving the budget.
But then this is per our code, this is just section 2-1, section F1. Special meetings may be called from time to time by the mayor or by at least 3 members of the city council. So that's right on our code.
Mayor, question.
Yes.
Steve, do you know that Councilwoman Gavin is going to vote yes? I mean, you're cutting it off really close if you don't, because we're coming back and voting on the same, like it's a dog and pony show for the same budget. You just said there'll be no substantive changes. If she's going to vote no, like the mayor just predicted, what's your plans on the 26th?
Councilman, in my career, I've never predicted what council people do. And I
Well, you have a phone,
think that's
so I know
one
you
of the
call.
reasons, that the earliest possible date, we know that she had said she was coming back on the Christmas Eve, 24th, so in effect, that's the date.
you know, I think the mayor had a good point. You know, we need to do it on the 26th because if there is no budget, they've got to get busy and crank something out so we can vote on it by the end of the year. So,
The next day.
yeah. Or day after.
But you have to have 4.
You know, you can actually continue, if it's, since it's that short, you can actually just continue the meeting to that night.
Well, this is all new, uncharted for most of us. I know for me, this is my 8th budget I've worked on, and we've never had this kind of ineffective scheduling.
This has
We've
never
had
happened.
No,
Ever.
never.
Not ever.
That's what
Long
happens when you
time.
talk to people ahead of time and collaborate.
Mess.
So then I would have a recommendation then to table motion 66319 and 66419 to that December 26th at 5:30.
So moved.
Well, sorry.
Okay, did we get the second?
Second.
It's been motioned and second to table Council Memo number 66319 and Council Memo 66419 to the special meeting being held on December 26th at 5:30. Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Again, for the record, I will not be here, not because I don't want to be here, but because I'm on vacation and I need it, for God's sake. I'm here today to vote. I'm repeating myself, I know, but I want to make it very, very clear to my constituents that I'm not ignoring this vote. I stepped up tonight, but I'm done for the year, and I vote yes to table. Or, excuse me, I vote no to table that. I stand corrected. I vote no to table that.
recorded as no. Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
No?
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council memo number 665-19, ordinances associated with Misty Pond subdivision, which includes an ordinance approving the final planned unit development of Misty Pond subdivision, and an ordinance approving the recording plat of Misty Pond subdivision. It is recommended said ordinances be adopted.
So moved.
Second?
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council memo number 666-19, an ordinance approving additional house plans for Lake Prairie subdivision. It is recommended said ordinance be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
And second to approve, Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council memo number 667-19 is an ordinance approving a special use permit to allow a truck repair facility located at 290 Alessio Drive. It is recommended said ordinance be adopted.
Mayor, real quick, for clarification on this particular item, if you don't mind. Yesterday it was said, the way the vote total from the ZBA was presented by the city manager would make it look as though a member of the ZBA named Vincent Alessio would have voted, and he didn't. You misspoke. Vincent Alessio did not vote on this. He did not discuss it. He recused himself entirely, so the vote total was not what was represented yesterday. He did the right thing. And with all these ethics complaints being tossed around like spitballs, I wanted to make that clear up front.
Question, I guess maybe for Kendall. Kendall, I read the information, and I know the Alessio Drive, as I understand it, is a private road, and I didn't see that there was anything in this that that road was going to be upgraded or changed over. Did I miss it, or is there anything in the?
Councilman, no, you did miss it. It is a private road, and there was no condition for any improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion and a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman, no, sorry, Councilman Hug.
I thought you were referring to me.
Nope,
Aye.
not today.
Okay.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Motion carried. And next is Council Memo 668-19. Ordinance approving a special use permit to allow a truck repair and cartage facility located at 1728 through 1738 Irish Indian Trail. It is recommended said ordinance be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
And motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is Council Memo 669-19, an ordinance designating 113 North Ottawa Street as a local historic landmark. And at yesterday's pre-council meeting, the city manager discussed a recommendation that this item be tabled. However, I'm going to turn this item over to the city manager to discuss new developments concerning the proposed covenant.
Thank you. You recall last night we talked about reasons why we were suggesting that this particular request from the Historic Preservation Commission be tabled. And that reason was that we were negotiating with the property owner to potentially dedicate a restrictive covenant that would, basically prevent the building from being demolished either by his own ownership or through subsequent sales. As a indication of good faith, that individual worked with our city attorney today and finalized language in a restrictive covenant, which he actually took down to Will County and had recorded. So I did give a copy to everyone, which is on the dais. So in view of the fact that he has done that, I would change our staff recommendation to suggest that it be denied, because he has done this. The reason for tabling was to make sure that this actually was recorded, and there was that security that the building would not suffer the potential of being demoed. With regard to exterior improvements in the future, we had indicated that any sort of redevelopment of this property is going to require incentives, no doubt. I mean, it's an ancient building, massive improvements would be needed. We feel that our incentive agreement, our redevelopment agreement, would certainly have sufficient teeth to impose restrictions on what any exterior changes would involve. So once again, we would recommend that the motion be denied as opposed to tabled because of this security.
Question?
Yes.
So I see everything in here that cannot be done. I didn't see that there's anything in here of what would be done in the way of maintenance for this building. I mean, the building, nothing has been done to this building that I understand for quite some time, or at least that I've seen.
Right. I mean, from a code enforcement perspective, he would still have to comply with our own internal codes. So for instance, if, gutters started falling off, there was some hazard, this doesn't necessarily cover that, but our maintenance codes would. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
I'll move to table so we can look into it further.
Second.
All right. It's been motion and second to table Council Memo number 669-19. Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Medrin.
No.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
No.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Hold on, that's 4-3, right?
Oh,
5-2.
5-2, okay.
yeah, 2.
I got confused on my,
Keeping track.
okay, sorry.
Real quick, one more thing. Does anybody here from staff or on the council, I'm down to 6%, and this meeting's not gonna last 6%. I'm gonna lose my iPad in a second. Anybody got an iPad that,
Hard copy?
or give me a hard copy in case I go
I'll
down?
get you one.
Grab it,
Go
Mayor.
ahead. Pauline.
Thank you, Pauline. Yeah.
No, I mean, a cord.
Maybe. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
I have a cord. You want a cord?
Yeah, if you have a cord that I can just use for the remainder of the meeting, I'll be good.
Go ahead, Pauline.
Okay, Council Memo number 670-19, an ordinance approving a special use permit to allow an adult use
Hold on,
cannabis.
the motion at table failed?
It is.
Oh, passed.
5-2.
Mayor, on that last table motion, I don't think there was a date certain for the tabling.
It's true, it was not.
Yay.
I think we need a date, correct?
To the next meeting.
No, that's next week. I won't.
No, I'm sorry, to the next regularly scheduled council meeting.
January.
January 7th.
So that one would be tabled to the January 7th, 2020?
Yes.
Okay, so that was Council Memo 669-19 will be tabled to the January 7th, 2020 meeting. And so Council Memo Number 670-19, the ordinance approving a special use permit to allow an adult use cannabis dispensing organization at 2903 Colorado Avenue. It is recommended said ordinance be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve.
Yes, Mike?
Mr. Mayor, if I could address the council on this matter before a vote, if possible.
Yes, go ahead.
Members of the council, Mr. Mayor, Mike Hanson here on behalf of GTI, the applicant for the special use permit. Yesterday at the pre-council meeting, there was some discussion about the social equity provisions that are built into the state statute. Mayor, members of the council, we wish to recommend to the council that it add a condition to this special use permit as well as the next application that will follow this. And let me please read this if I can. That is a condition for the issuance of a special use permit, the holder of the license issued by the state of Illinois to sell recreational cannabis shall make a $10,000 per year payment no later than December 31st of each year, beginning December 31st, 2020, to the City of Joliet Cannabis Business Development Fund. This fund is to provide grants to qualified social equity applicants to pay for ordinary and necessary expenses to start and operate a cannabis business establishment permitted by the state act. Social equity applicants are defined in the act shall be eligible for such grants. The City of Joliet, this fund shall be administered by the comptroller of the City of Joliet in accordance with such rules and guidelines as are established for similar programs by the state of Illinois. This fund would follow the fund set up by the state of Illinois and provide some local input and benefit then to social equity applicants. In addition, we'd like to recommend that the Legislative and Land Use Committee would also undertake at one of its early meetings in January some type of a program that would establish some general oversight and kind of looking about at seeing how the issue of marijuana, the sale of recreational marijuana is doing in the City of Joliet, so they come back at certain times and recommend this to the council. That was another expression that we felt would be important to the city. So that's not a part of the conditions, but that's just a recommendation to the city manager and to the staff. So with that additional condition, which we're willing to live with, I'd like to then turn the matter back over to the council.
Yes.
I had a question, Mayor. And I know, and it's probably my fault, Mayor. I know it was someone that wanted to speak. They should have spoke at the beginning of the meeting. And I was just going to ask you, the council, if it would be okay to just briefly he just wanted to address the council. Is that right, Mr. What, Mr.
Yes. I think we need a motion.
We need a motion? Yeah, okay. You. I'd like to do a motion that Mr. Waheed would address the council concerning this agenda item.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank you all for granting me the opportunity to come before you, first of all. And I think that there is a lot of misleading with this bill. It's a lot that individuals aren't truly understanding. Right now, the bill is still getting hashed out. We started out with 600 pages. Right now, we're at 1,000 plus pages because it just got amended. So to be clear, this is an equity bill. When we talk about equity, we're talking about making sure that individuals are all individuals are operating with a quality of life that's not only standard, but is equal for all. So in the interest, so when we came up with HB 1438, and I want to read directly from the bill, when we look at Amendment 7, paragraph B, it reads, in the interest of establishing a legal cannabis industry that is equitable and accessible to those most adversely impacted by the enforcement of drug-related laws in this state, including cannabis-related laws, the General Assembly finds and declares that a social equitable program should be established. And the reason why this was so important is because in 2012, medical cannabis was established in Illinois, right? And then once it was established, we only had 55 licenses that individuals were able to get. None of those individuals look like me. So now as we move to paragraph C, it says the General Assembly also finds and declares that individuals who have been arrested or incarcerated due to drug laws, suffer long-lasting negative consequences, including impacts to employment, business ownership, housing, health, and long-term financial well-being. The General Assembly also finds and declares that family members, especially children in communities of those who have been arrested or incarcerated due to drug laws, suffer from emotional, psychological, and financial harms as a result of such arrests and incarcerations. Furthermore, the General Assembly finds and declares that certain communities have been disproportionately suffered harms of enforcement of cannabis-related laws. Those communities face greater difficulties accessing traditional banking systems and capital for establishing business. The General Assembly also finds that individuals who have resided in areas of high poverty suffer negative consequences, including barriers to entry and employment, business ownership, housing, health, and long-term financial well-being. The General Assembly also finds and declares that promotion of business ownership by individuals who have resided in these areas of high poverty and high enforcement of cannabis-related laws furthers an equitable cannabis industry. Therefore, in the interest of remedying the harms resulting from the disproportionate enforcement of cannabis-related laws, the General Assembly finds and declares that a social equitable program should offer, among other things, financial assistance, license application benefits to individuals most directly and adversely impacted by the enforcement of these laws who are interested in entering this business. $10,000 does not do that.
Question, the General Assembly, are they talking about local municipalities, or are they talking about the state of Illinois?
So what they did was they left it up to the city to decide to make their ordinances to coincide with what they believe. They felt that they shouldn't have to come in and govern their part. They did their part of the state, and the loophole there is to say, okay, we're going to leave it up to you all to make the decisions for your constituents. Now, with that being said, we've already seen and we have blueprints from what Evanston has already done. Right now, we're in Chicago going back and forth because some individuals are saying, okay, let's just opt out. Because if, for what this bill was created for, if it's not going to succeed in doing that, then we don't need the bill at all. Because this bill is not about individuals being able to go and just smoke marijuana. The individual, this is an equity bill, and we need to be very clear on that. And the equity is taking these disenfranchised communities and bringing them up to a level where they're no longer living in poverty. They're no longer having all the schools not being where they should be. The housing market and financial institutions are able to reestablish themselves. This is what the bill reads, this is what the bill says, and this is what the bill means. Earlier, I heard individuals come adamantly against their character being attacked. I heard individuals look at a situation that was presented here today and talked about individuals being poor and not having anything, individuals striving just to make it. And then now we're at the point where we're talking about individuals living below that and then having something taken from them. Because now this is what this bill was created for. So for individuals to come in and say, you know what, we're going to totally ignore that and act like it doesn't exist and still profit from this is not only a slap in the face, but it's kicking the individual up under the bus as you slap them in the face. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Dina Rollman, who was here last night, to kind of address that and give a little different perspective from what the individual said.
Good evening, Dina Rollman from Green Thumb Industries. I was here last night, and I did, I think, actually say a lot that agrees with the gentleman who just spoke. This was a social equity forward bill. It is a priority, and I probably took too much time last night in trying to talk about what GTI is doing, not just in terms of what is required by the bill, but also what we are doing that is above and beyond to demonstrate our commitment to furthering those goals. I want to clear up a misconception that may have occurred tonight, which is that when we talk about donating $10,000 to a City of Joliet fund, that is above and beyond the $100,000 per license that we are paying into the state's cannabis fund. Okay, so this is the way the state organized this bill was legalized statewide and really left it to municipalities for matters of zoning, time and place. That is really the scope of the authority that was given to municipalities. So that is why municipalities have been deciding whether to opt in or opt out. If they're opting in, where in the community can you locate? What hours can you be open? And how many dispensaries do we want to allow in our community? That's sort of the framework there. totally separate and apart from that, in order for a business to open a dispensary in a community, we have to pay we get to elect what type of social equity activity we want to do. GTI has elected, just so we're clear, to incubate. Prior to there being now any new social equity dispensary license winners, which they'll be announced on May 1, we launched in early September a weekly program that we call the LEAP program that I'm running personally, so I can speak to it with real authority here because it's my time that I spend every week in GTI's headquarters, providing free counseling to social equity applicants who want to hand in dispensary applications between now and January 2nd. I've spent 5 years at GTI writing competitive license applications. I've developed somewhat of an expertise at it. And so I and GTI are putting a lot of significant resource on a weekly basis towards helping essentially our competitors. I want social equity applicants to win dispensary licenses and compete against us. We're providing our knowledge and experience behind that. We're providing $100,000 in low-interest loans and grants to those winners. So I just want to be very clear, there is no disagreement here. It is a priority of the bill. We support it. And the $10,000 discussed tonight was only an idea as to what we could do to go above and beyond what is required.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so it was motioned and seconded to approve Council Memo Number 70-19, which was the ordinance approving a special use permit to allow an adult use cannabis dispensing organization at 2903 Colorado Avenue. Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
No.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
No.
Motion carried. 6-2. Next is Council Memo Number 671-19, an ordinance approving a special use permit to allow an adult use cannabis dispensing organization at 1627 Rock Creek Boulevard. It is recommended said ordinance be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It has been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
No.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
No.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Motion carried, 6-2.
5-2.
5-2, sorry. Next is Council Memo Number 672-19, an ordinance amending Chapter 8.
It's been pulled from the call.
Yep, and so I was going to read through it, but this item was previously
That was
removed from the agenda. So Council Memo Number 673-19 is an ordinance declaring certain properties as public nuisances. It's recommended said ordinance be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It has been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo Number 674-19 is an ordinance amending Section 2-314.2 Roles and Responsibilities, City of Joliet's Arts Commission of the Code of Ordinances in the City of Joliet, Illinois. It is recommended said ordinance be adopted.
Mayor? In this particular one, I sent out a quick email. I think there was a Scribner, or there is a Scribner's error in the section F. The "and" should be "any" instead of "and." So, just to make it clear.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and second to approve. Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Is Councilman Dickinson okay?
No, yeah, he's okay. We didn't skip him, he left the meeting.
He left the meeting, yep, he left the meeting at 8:41.
He's not sick.
Oh,
Apparently he had to go somewhere else.
so abrupt, I just wondered.
That's not what he told me.
Next is Council Memo Number 675-19, an ordinance amending Chapter 21, Article 8, and repealing Section 21-14 of the City of Joliet Code of Ordinances. It is recommended said ordinance be adopted.
So moved.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye?
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
No.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Motion carried, 5-1.
Mayor?
Yes.
The council's starting to tilt to the left. We have to send somebody down here with me.
Next is, make sure I'm okay here. 76 is Council Memo Number 676-19, and that is an ordinance amending Chapter 21, Offenses, Article 1, Section 21-14.1 of the City of Joliet Code of Ordinances. It is recommended said ordinances be adopted. Ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. I am off now. Councilman Hug,
Aye?
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
No.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
and motion carried 5-1. Next is 677-19, is an ordinance amending Chapter 19, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Parking Division 1, Section 19-150 of the City of Joliet Code of Ordinances. It is recommended said ordinance be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and second to approve. Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye?
Motion carried. Next is Council Memo Number 678-19, an ordinance amending Chapter 19, Division 2, Truck Routes of the City of Joliet Code of Ordinances. It is recommended said ordinance be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye?
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Motion carried. Resolutions, Council Memo Number 680-19, a resolution authorizing a cost-sharing service agreement with PACE and Centerpoint for bus service on PACE Route 511. It is recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and second to approve. Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye?
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is Council Memo Number 681-19, is a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between PACE and the City of Joliet for funding and construction of a bus facility. It is recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and second to approve. Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris. Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is Council Memo Number 682-19, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an agreement for the lease of a city-owned parcel at the southeast corner of I-55 and Caton Farm Road for farming. It is recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Turk.
Aye. Thank you.
Councilman Hug.
Since farmers are outstanding in their field, I vote aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is Council Memo Number 683-19, a resolution approving, tolling agreement, and this item was previously removed from the agenda. So we have Council Memo Number 684-19, which is a resolution authorizing the purchase of properties from the Will County Delinquent Tax Auction. It is recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and second to approve. And we have Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
And motion carried. Next is 685-19, a resolution authorizing the submittal of the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, CAPR, to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. It is recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is Council Memo Number 686-19, a resolution appropriating funds for the Logan Avenue, Washington Street through 2nd Avenue roadway project. It is recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and second to approve. Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is Council Memo Number 687-19, resolution approving an agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation for Phase 3 of the Essington Road over the Rock Run Creek Improvement Project. It is recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and second to approve. Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
And Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Motion carried. And next is 688-19, resolution appropriating funds for the Phase 3 engineering services for the Essington Road over the Rock Run Creek Improvement Project.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is Council Memo Number 689-19, a resolution appropriating funds for the construction of the Essington Road over the Rock Run Creek Improvements Project.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. And Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is Council Memo Number 690-19, a resolution appropriating funds for the Smith Avenue, Center Street through Broadway Street roadway improvement project, 2018. It is recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. That's Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is Council Memo Number 691-19, a resolution to approve a contract agreement between the City of Joliet Fire Officers Local 2369, IAFF, AFL-CIO 2016 through 2019. It is recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next, Council Memo 692-19, a resolution authorizing execution of an addendum to the contingent fee professional services agreement with Azavar Audit Solutions. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
And Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next, Council Memo Number 693-19, a resolution declaring certain City of Joliet property as surplus. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
Been motion and second to approve. Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon. Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin. Motion carried. Next is bids and contracts, award of contracts. Council Memo Number 695-19, request for authorization to award a professional
Colleen,
services.
remember, we're pulling 699-19 separate. Okay, thank you.
So request for authorization to award a professional services agreement for the Phase 3 engineering services for the Essington Road over the Rock Run Creek Improvements Project. Council Memo Number 696-19, a request for authorization to purchase one ambulance for the City of Joliet Fire Department. Council Memo Number 697-19, a request for authorization to award a contract for the Well Rock 3 Rehabilitation Project. Council Memo Number 698-19, a request for authorization to award a contract for the Well 5D Rehabilitation Project. Then we have Council Memo Number 700-19, a request for authorization to purchase water metering equipment fiscal year 2020. And Council Memo Number 701-19, a request authorization to award contracts for the Old Joliet Prison Visitor Center. So it is recommended that Council Memos Numbers 695-19 through 698-19, and then Council Memo Numbers 700-19 and 701-19 be approved.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Motion carried. Then we have council memo number 699-19, a request for authorization to award a contract for the old Joliet prison wells removal. It is recommended this council memo be approved.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye? No?
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Marty?
Yes, because you can vote on this one because we're doing it.
Okay. I'll vote aye.
and Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is amendments, change orders, and payments. We have council memo number 703-19, a request for authorization to approve change order number 1 and pay out number 5 and final for the 2019 roadways resurfacing contract A. Council memo number 704-19, a request for authorization to approve change order number 2 and payment number 5 and final for the Logan Avenue, Washington Street, 2nd Avenue roadway project. Council memo number 705-19, a request for authorization to approve change order number 3 for the multi-year EAB tree replacement program. Council memo number 706-19, a request for authorization to approve change order number 2 and payment number 11 and final for the 2018 hazardous tree removal and trim program over 20 inches in diameter. Council memo number 707-19, a request for authorization to approve change order number 2 for the 2018 hazardous tree removal and trim program less than 20 inches in diameter. Council memo number 708-19, a request for authorization to approve change order number 2 and payment request number 13 for the 2018 electrical maintenance assistance contract. And next is council memo number 709-19, a request for authorization to approve change order number 7 for the combined sewer overflow long-term control plan, phase 3 wet weather treatment facility project. Council memo number 710-19, a request for authorization to approve change order number 4 and payment request number 6 and final for the Smith Avenue, Center Street through Broadway Street roadway improvement project 2018. Council memo number 711-19, a request for authorization to approve change order number 3 and final payout for the 12D water tower reconditioning project. Council memo number 712-19, a request for authorization to approve change order number 1 for the 2019 utilities electrical maintenance service agreement. And last but not least, council memo number 713-19, a request for authorization to approve change order number 1 for the Rock Run and West Park Interceptor Rehabilitation Project. And Councilman Hug, I will not read those again.
Oh, you're ahead of me. Everyone.
She's on top of it.
It is recommended council memo numbers 703-19 through 713-19 be approved.
So moved. Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Hug?
Did you go through them again?
No.
Aye?
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is the city manager's report.
Before that,
you
Mayor,
never-
quickly. Marty, it got past me, and it was pointed out to me. Doesn't usually happen, but it did. 70119, I would have voted no on, but it got past me. I'd forgotten what it was. How do I, that I would have asked that to be separated out. I don't want to prolong the meeting by having to vote on all the contracts again, separate it out. Is there any way to do it? Can we, under Robert's rule and under, statute and ordinance, make a note right now as I speak that it was, I'll let my vote stand, but it was a mistake and I meant it to be no because I overlooked it.
Yes, you can change your vote.
I can change my vote on that one item?
And it's still, and yes, and it's still passed.
But not on all of them, right?
Yes,
Just on that one item?
just in the one.
70119, I'm a no.
70119 is noted as no.
Thank you. There we go.
I thought you'd never get to me. One quick item, just let everyone
Now
know.
you know how I feel.
Let everyone know that I've appointed Jeff Carey as Deputy Fire Chief. I know we had a little need for some additional management firepower in the fire department, and it was an interesting process. We had 3 great battalion chiefs all interview for the position. There were a total of 9 people that had expressed interest within the department itself. So Monday was Jeff's first day, and we look forward to him serving us in a new capacity. And that's the end of my report.
Okay. Next is new business, not for final action or recommendation.
Nothing.
I have a question. I want to know, well, it's new old business. I want to know how much longer we're going to continue to use Ansel Blend Care. Are we going to get rid of them right away since there's a conflict? Fair question.
Oh, is that a question?
Yeah.
We basically have them coming in on January 7th.
So you continue to pay them taxpayer money when I brought forward that I am not guilty and there's a conflict because they represented Sergeant Hefner on several occasions, and as recently as June of 2019.
There are aspects of the discussion.
And that was not disclosed.
There are aspects of this discussion I think are best handled in the appropriate form, and I'm sure we'll have that
I want to know if
discussion.
you're going to continue to hire them. Yes or no?
We are continuing to use them, and as I said, they're coming in the 7th, and we'll have that discussion.
I would think that's a violation of ethics, but whatever.
Jan, Councilwoman, month or 2, we'll have somebody at the top that will do it right. Relax.
Next is public comments. Is there anyone who would like to make a public comment?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Reverend Adrian Heath. I have a question, a comment basically on Council Memo 67019 and 67119 regarding the cannabis dispense organizations and use. Once the tax revenue began to come in from that, those businesses, will any of those tax revenues be coming back to any of those areas or communities that were disenfranchised by the drugs, basically? Anybody can answer. Will any of that be able to come back to those communities as was mentioned?
At the present time, the revenue is shown as a general fund revenue with no specific earmark for any particular use.
Would there be any reason why, if the state is saying that some of that should come back to those communities, why none of that money, the council would not bring any of that money back to those communities?
I think, Mike, your company, sorry, I'm losing my voice. Your company said they were going to.
Well, yeah, the $10,000 is, if you said just saying $10,000, we're going to be probably talking about $100,000 per year in revenue from those type of businesses, and to say $10,000. Go ahead.
Excuse me, my answer was going to be, we're kind of mixing apples and oranges here just a little bit. The state program and the proposed city program that we proposed has to do with applicants and getting minority people into the game, if you will. The mayor here is talking about how the city council and how the city wishes to spend the revenue that it hopes to derive from the sale, the license fees, et cetera, and the taxes are going to be gained from the sale of medical and adult use marijuana. So I think that's matters, Mr. Jones answered that, still up for discussion by the city. So that's, I think, where the answer stands right now.
So does anybody on the city want to answer that? Okay, it's still up for, in other words, it's still up for, you haven't decided how you're going to use that, is that Is that what you said?
Well, as I said, the revenue is part of the general fund, which basically is it's considered to be tax revenue like sales tax or any other tax that goes into the general fund to fund the overall operations of the city. There haven't been any programs discussed or proposed that would utilize, the cannabis tax for any specific purpose.
So the answer would be no then?
Correct.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. My name is Ernest Graham. It's nice to see you all again. Thank you all for listening to my, not listening to, reading my emails, responding, and offering to talk to me outside of council meetings as well. I would just like to echo the sentiments of the two previous speakers and just wanting to encourage you all to do something at this point in history for social equity. Marijuana has not always been illegal in America or the world. It hasn't always been demonized. It was made illegal after Prohibition, strategically to lock up black and brown people. It was propagated that black and brown people, when they smoked weed, were more prone to do criminal acts and to, quote, lust for white blood. This was the beginnings of prohibition for marijuana in this country because they feared they would actually lose money after alcohol was legalized again. From the late 1930s to the late 1970s, black and brown people were locked up disproportionately. In the 70s, Richard Nixon said to his aide, who was quoted as saying that we have to disrupt these black communities, we have to disrupt these hippie communities, and we can't outright say we want to do that. So what we need to do is lock them up more for using marijuana and heroin. Over the past 40 years, the incarceration rate in this country has improved by 500%. Black people make up 40% of the prison population and 13% of the general population. With that said, we know that there are no adverse effects to using marijuana. You're not more prone to criminality. You can actually make an argument that you're more prone to criminality by drinking excessively. So as we stand at this point in history, a very historic moment, such as the point in time in history when alcohol was made legal again, I think you all have a very important position and a chance to make history as one of the very few cities in this county to actually allow it. And I commend you all for making that historic jump. I would encourage you all. I know it's not an easy thing to do, having to appeal to so many different constituents and different viewpoints, but I think in the long term, it's going to make this city a lot stronger if we repair the communities who have been disproportionately affected. Most of these are black communities, Mexican communities, communities that have been redlined strategically to keep them in poverty, which you all probably know. So I just want to encourage you to, again, do the right thing, and I think that history will tell the story 50 years down the line, 100 years down the line, that Joliet did what was right once again, and thank you for listening. Take care. Oh, matter of fact, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Kwanzaa.
Is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, mayor and council comments?
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everyone.
Merry Christmas and have a safe holiday.
Same. Hope everybody has a very safe holiday and a good holiday season, Christmas.
Enjoy your families, and as Mr. Krim said, I'll echo his comments. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Kwanzaa. And I hope a Happy New Year to all.
Same dog.
Same.
Pauline, thank you for subbing in, and Jesse, thank you. I hope Krista's feeling better. Merry Christmas to you, to my colleagues, to staff, and to the people of Joliet. Happy holidays, and we'll see everyone on December 26th.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.